Hello everybody, welcome to the technical analysis webinar here with AvaTrade. My name is Troy, I'll be presenting. As we get started, let's do a quick systems check. If you would, just type OK in the chat box to let me know that you can hear me all right and that the screen is showing properly. Okay, great, looks like we're up and running fine. If anyone has any issues as we go along, feel free to let me know. As always, keep in mind that there's risk involved with each trade that you take. No one trade is guaranteed to profit. So you want to manage risk in a way that makes sense for you in terms of trade size, exposure amount, etc. And we'll go over some tools in that regard that are found in our web trader that can really make the risk management side of things much simpler. And so as we go through maybe some trade simulations, we'll go through the risk management side of things a bit as well. And also keep in mind that what we go over is not meant to be financial advisement, but is coming from an educational perspective. Now, from our main website, it doesn't matter whether you're trading on MT4 accounts or MT5 accounts, you can use our web trader, which is accessed from the login on the main website. And the web trader allows you to switch between your MT4 accounts and MT5 and trade from one location. Also live accounts and demo accounts. And the same for our AvaTrade mobile app. And the app is found in the major app stores. You can also find it here on our website with links to the major app stores. And what you'll find on our app is it has the same convenient features as our web trader. So with the app, you also can trade on MT4 and MT5 accounts, and you have all of the other tools, the signals, the market news, the technical analysis help, etc. So you have a mobile option as well as a web version web trader as well. So if we log in here in the upper right, then we'll be in the web trader platform. Now, I know it's a technical analysis based webinar, but we should talk a little bit about fundamentals in terms of what's happened in the news today, maybe upcoming announcements, to get a feel for what the sentiment is. There seems to be a bit of fear on the markets. It's hard to really get a feel for exactly what could be contributing to that, but the US dollar's been a bit strong through the day. That's usually a currency that strengthens a little when there's fear out there as somewhat of a safe haven currency. And also we've noticed the major indices pushing down a bit. Even gold was dropping against the USD as it strengthened. And so it's a bit of choppy trading, maybe more downward movement on the equities than upward. And euro, pound, etc., tending to trend down against the US dollar as it strengthened a bit. And fundamentally, what could be contributing to a little bit of anxiety on the markets? We could be talking about upcoming announcements out of the US that'll give a peek at where is the inflation trend standing and what might the interest rate decisions be out of the US in the coming weeks and months. We've got housing data that came out today that was worse than expected. And, as the US in particular has been trying to bring inflation down, and it's been what they call sticky, not wanting to drop to, the 2% or sub 2% inflation rate that they prefer. Now there's some anxiety about the housing sector. Interest rates have gone up so much to try and bring down inflation. That has negative consequences as well, with hurting different sectors of the economy. And now the housing market really, for the past several weeks, has shown worse than expected numbers. I think it's tough for people to sell houses when interest rates are so high now, compared to what they were a year and a half ago or so. And so that makes sense, but there's some fear about, will it be a soft landing or not as the U.S. Tries to come out of the high inflation and then start to lower interest rates back down after all of the raising. So I think there's some uncertainty in the air about what will those numbers tomorrow now be, and the next day there's some inflationary data coming out of the U.S. GDP numbers, I believe, tomorrow. So if you take a look at the economic calendar, you'll see a number of key announcements coming out of the U.S. Tomorrow and Friday. And so a lot of eyes will be on that. Now, there's also the situation with what might happen in the Middle East between Israel and Hezbollah, with Lebanon in the north, and then also could that pull in a greater regional war with Iran? What effect might that have on the markets? There's nothing been announced as imminent, but there's still some fears out there that things could escalate at any moment's notice, whether that's in days or weeks or whatever that might be. So those are just some things fundamentally that are out there that could be contributing to a bit of fear on the markets right now. And so we keep that in mind as we then start to look at maybe the technical signals coming out and some other technical trends to see, okay, what makes sense maybe to do right now. If we're looking at something like Australian JPY, be an interesting pairing. I just click on it because I see that there's a signal here, and we see that the Australian has a buy signal that tried to reach the first take profit level and kind of leveled off with a resistance level right here. Typically when there's fear out there, the yen is somewhat of a safe haven currency, so it doesn't surprise me that this signal tried to climb but didn't quite make it, at least not yet, to the take profit lines up here where we see the resistance levels up higher. It looked like a pretty strong signal. It did break through the pivot level, and as it broke through, it continued to rise like the signal predicted, but leveled off. And we can see the resistance now has formed before it reached the take profit suggestion. So this is a signal, probably if I already went into this earlier and it's in profit, I might close that off a bit early because it looks like it ran out of steam on that signal. And sometimes you can take these signals and understand why it was predicted to go the way it did, but you also can see maybe from a technical perspective that maybe it's formed resistance and lost its momentum. And so if we take that approach and we start to think, okay, there's been some fear out there today. If we go back 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, okay, this came up. The fear that I was talking about that kind of hit today, that created choppy trading, was here for the last 12 hours. This has gone sideways and trended maybe even down a little bit from these highs. And so the reason I say it's an interesting pairing is because the Australian dollar tends to do well when the economies are doing well around the world, and in particular the US and China. Why? It's because Australian is an export nation for commodities, okay? Whether it's iron ore or some of the energy products, coal, different exports that are used for energy that might go to the larger economies out there. And so a lot of times they say, as China goes, so goes the Australian dollar. So if there's some fears out there and the markets are having trouble rising and the US dollar is strengthening because of fear, then many times the yen is also a safe haven currency that can strengthen as well if there's some fear out there. Now, I'm not saying there's a big sell-off or something on the market, but we do see this resistance has formed just prior to getting where these take profit suggestions were. So sometimes you can flip these signals and start to look to see if maybe there's an opportunity even to go the opposite direction if they've already risen up and reached potentially to their take profit marks. And so if we start to maybe go to larger candles, we can see on the larger candles whether or not we think there's some type of resistance that maybe is on the larger candles that could slow this movement down. What we see is the yen has been weak for so long, we don't have resistance levels, even if we look back months and years, okay? So you can understand that this could keep climbing, but also in the short term, that there does appear to be a bit of a resistance level that's formed. So if you were looking to make an opposite move here, thinking that, okay, there's some fears about the economy slowing down. That could hurt the strength of the Australian dollar, being an export nation, and paired against the yen, which could strengthen when there are economic fears out there, as a safe haven currency, then if that's kind of the take you had on it, then you could put your resistance level at today's highs up in this area around 106.906 and say if indeed there is a pullback with some fear on the market, this could pull back then to a support level that maybe is down in this direction. And so this was resistance, resistance, resistance into earlier in the week. And then we see the breakthrough earlier today, this morning. This is the breakthrough candle. So this took a lot of momentum to do that, to break through the resistance. And so if there was a pullback, perhaps it would find support at this level. And this could be a spot in the short term you could look to try and take a profit if you were going to try and short what started as a buy signal. Okay. Now, it does look like it's not done trying to push up. It keeps testing, testing, testing. So what you could do in this circumstance, if you were looking, say, to short this instrument, is then go to smaller candles and take a look and say, okay, if it starts to downtrend, then maybe I'm interested in this. But it has to maybe confirm in your mind that there's a downtrend that's starting. So on the 5-minute or the 15-minute candles, I could pick a spot and say, okay, if this goes down below these wicks and below this little resistance level from the past that went down and then it went above that mark, okay, so this was resistance in the past, it became support today. If this breaks down below this line, then maybe you say, then I'll take a shot at believing that this is a reversal, okay? So many times you wait for confirmatory movements if you're trying to speculate about something that hasn't happened yet. And so in this case, if we're speculating that maybe the fundamental news tells us this could reverse, and you do see a bit of a resistance level form, maybe you wait to see that there's an actual downtrend on the smaller candles before you get in on a move, okay? And so let's say you decided to do that, understanding that this was a buy signal that didn't quite reach the take profit yet. So maybe you don't want to do a market move, but you want to do a pending order if it indeed starts to downtrend on the smaller candles. And so if we look at that on 5-minute candles, we can see it would take a drop below this low point, down below this line. And so in that case, it would be a downtrend on these 5-minute candles. And so we go in and say execute when price hits. If indeed it drops below this support level that we drew, 106.75, then we might deem this a downtrend. So 106.72, something like that, to get a few pips below this line. Stop loss and take profit. Take profit could be down here. This is the support level we saw in the larger candles. Here you see the resistance, right? Resistance, resistance, breakthrough candle. And so if this comes down, you might look to take profit on a short-term scalp if you're looking for a small pullback without having to break back below this support level, which is the old resistance, okay? So we're looking at 106.40 approximately as a potential take profit if indeed this reverses. Stop loss would be above today's highs. If it breaks above today's high, okay, after coming down and triggering the pending order, if it then goes back up above today's high, well, then it's an uptrend again. And that makes sense from a technical perspective to give up on your sell if it turns into an uptrend breaking the day's high. So 106.91 is the resistance approximately. So 106.94 maybe would be a stop loss that could make sense. Okay, so going after approximately 6,000 profit, risking a little over 4,100. So that's the setup technically speaking, waiting for a downtrend. We see the resistance form. We might feel that the fundamental news is on our side a little bit with some, unnerving announcements coming up tomorrow and Friday that maybe have the markets a little bit fearful. Maybe some folks are hearing war drums and having some fear about that with the markets. So the yen being a safe haven currency would strengthen on those types of worries. The Australian dollar being a commodities exporter nation would weaken maybe on those types of worries, economic slowdown and such. So if indeed this starts to downtrend and triggers the sell, our stop loss above today's high or take profit just before the next support. Okay, so we've got our entry point, our stop loss, and our take profit figured from a technical perspective and the directionality from a fundamental perspective. Now, we just need to adjust the trade size so the risk management is proper. Do I really want to risk 4,000 on a balance of 65? Okay, that's quite a percent risk in terms of per trade risk. Maybe you only want to risk 1% or something even lower than that per trade. And it's okay if you want to risk 5 or 10% of your balance per trade, but if I'm trying to manage risk in a way that maybe is a little more conservative, then once I have my price points set on this potential trade, now I adjust my trade size. So if I do 5 lots on this, I'm risking 685 to make almost 1,000. If I do 4 lots, I'm risking 548, which is then less than 1% of my balance, to try and make almost 800, which is more than 1% of my balance. So it's an opportunistic entry point, even though we're waiting for a confirmatory downtrend before we get in. So it's nice that you can wait for a downtrend to confirm that downward movement before you sell and still have a better potential profit than risk. Okay, so it really is an opportunistic entry point from a technical perspective. Now, I might up this a little bit. That's a bit less than 1% of my balance. So maybe I do 4 1/4 lots or 4 1/2. And I can see that's getting closer to about 655 or so would be 1%. So, and there's nothing magic about 1%. I'm just using that as an example. You can risk the amount that makes sense to you. Okay, so maybe I go with this 6.7, 6.75 range, or I'm sorry, 4.7, 4.75, and that gets me to about 1% of my balance for possible loss, and near 1,000 on the potential profit. And so then I go ahead and sell. Now, this is not a trade yet. It will only open if my downtrend is confirmed on the small candles. If this goes up and breaks today's high and keeps climbing, I never entered, okay? So I'm being careful because the signal was a buy. It didn't hit the take profit yet, but I'm trying to take advantage of the fact that it did go up, like the signal said, and maybe fizzled out just before the take profits, and perhaps a downtrend could ensue now with the fundamental news the way it is. Okay, so this is kind of trying to take advantage of the benefit of the technical analysis that the signals give you, which we saw here. Okay, and it looks like this is now saying it already reached a key level. Oh, this is the AUDJPY, sorry. Also, the euro climbed against the yen. There's the Australian JPY, which did not reach the key level yet, but got close. And we'll see how this turns out, but it's nice to have the signal because it outlines the support and resistance levels for you too. We see the support levels down here for potential take profits on the sell, okay? If indeed it starts to downtrend, okay? So you've got a lot of information there that can help you out from these tools. Now, where else can we look for technical analysis help and maybe even have fundamental news there as well? We can go to the discovery section and we can go to the market buzz which is one of my favorite tools on the platform. Now, the Market Buzz is a fundamental news tool primarily, but it combines it with some nice technical analysis that work out just like the signals that we just looked at. So it doesn't matter whether you're looking at stocks, commodities, all of the instruments are listed here. The ones with the bigger circles are trending the most, and the smaller circles are trending less. So I might take a look and say, okay, what's going on with Apple today? Or NVIDIA. I know a lot of people probably want to look at NVIDIA too. We can switch to the MT5 platform if you want to look at NVIDIA, because it's not on the MT4 accounts. Now, Apple, the prediction here is that the price may rise 11.8%. Okay, and if we click on this, it gives us a technical analysis setup. So we see that Apple was up at the first take profit suggestion not that long ago and pulled back. Okay, and these are daily candles. So if we go back about a week, Apple was pushing up here at this resistance level. So this is why now, after a pullback, the suggested take profit is up at this green line, because that's a resistance level from a week or two ago. Okay, and then they say if it breaks that, look for further upside to 228 or so. Okay, so we've got the technicals here. We've got even the indicators that were used. The MACD, the RSI. By the way, you can add those to your charts at any time on our platform. So if we want to look at Apple, we've got a technical prediction here. Maybe in the short term it pulls back. I know there's been choppy trading today. Maybe you find a nice entry point. Perhaps Apple pulled back today. So we can take a look. US market is open, so we can see what's happening with Apple. Okay, it's up on the day. We see it gapped up at the open and has climbed since. So looks like that signal was so far dead on in terms of what was going to happen. If we go to the larger candles, say 4-hour candles, we can start to see where we might have some resistance. And we saw that in the signal. Okay, we saw when we looked back a few days that there was a high that it reached and pulled back from this week. So this is into last week. These are 4-hour candles. So last week's climb, and then a pullback, and then a potential climb today back towards that high up around 219, 220. Okay, so this does look like an uptrend. The prediction is that it would keep climbing. And so this is something that you could look to make a move on if you like the price point. So if you were going to buy on it, take profit up at 220 or so. It was even calling for 223, something 228 even on the high end on that signal analysis, trend analysis that we looked at in the Market Buzz. So if we are conservative and say 220, that's $6 up approximately. Stop loss, you could just go below today's open. So stop loss down at 210. Or 209. Okay, and so you're risking a bit less than the potential profit. And now you just adjust the trade size to the amount that makes sense for you. One lot, I'm risking 513 to try and make 587. I've got my take profit up here at the resistance and my stop loss down here below today's open, okay, into yesterday's close. So if it doesn't go below today's open, you'd be profitable. Doesn't even need to break the highs up here from last week. Okay, so you can play with the risk management, trade size, stop loss position, take profit position, and see if the signal comes to fruition from the Market Buzz. And by the way, we didn't even look when we're in the market buzz, the fundamental side of things, we looked at the technical trend analysis, but the fundamental side of things, we tend to focus on in Thursday's webinar. But along with this trend analysis, you also have articles about Apple. Okay, so you could read articles as well about whatever instrument you're considering trading on and see what's the most recent news. If any important headlines have come out, you can click on the headlines and load the entire articles to read through. And that might help you make up your mind as well as to whether you want to follow that signal or not, to buy or sell on it. Any questions at this point? I'll pause just for a moment. Okay, and I know a lot of traders out there like to look at the commodities as well, like gold. So let's go ahead and bring gold up. And we can see the effect of the US dollar strengthening over the past really several days as gold dropped from this high up here, and we can draw a price line. Okay, we're up around 2370 almost, 2368. And now we're sitting down around 23 flat. It even broke below 2300 just a few candles ago. And so if we go to the 1 hour candles, we can better see that it dipped well below 2300, and now we're back above 2300. Looks like it's going to come up and try and test this old support level in this area up here. So we had the price hovering above this area here, and then down it went. We see the breakthrough candle and the plunge, which many times when you have a breakthrough candle with a big surge down, you get a pullback upwards. It doesn't mean it will keep climbing. It could even, once it reaches this old support level, then work its way back down. We'll see on that. Now the signal on gold was to sell. And so we see it nearly hit the suggested take profit. Here's the pivot line. So this was an old support. Once it was down below this support level, the signal was to sell. And boy, was that a nice signal. It almost hit the first take profit down around 22.92, just missed it, and it pulled back up some. So if you want to follow this signal, and again, the USD has been strong today, then you've got a second opportunity here because it didn't hit the take profit yet, and it pulled back up towards this support level that we drew. This was support right here, and then down it came. So this looks like an opportunity for those of you that still believe in this sell signal. Okay, so what would we be looking at then if you were planning to sell on this? Here's your resistance right in this area from this pullback. Okay, old support right here in this area, resistance. So if you were selling, you might put your stop loss above this zone of support / resistance up around 2310 maybe. And your take profit, we'd have to look at larger candles to see where might you be interested to take profit. They're suggesting between 22.92 and 22.81 here. Okay, and we could even go to 1 day or 1 week candles, and now we can see why 22.81 might be a spot that was suggested. Here's 22.80, and this was an old support level from back on these candles. And so we come over here, and that's 22.80, 22.81 towards this support. So right in that area could be a take profit mark for a short-term move. It's about $20 down in the price right now. Okay, so if you were going to follow this signal as a sell, we're looking at take profit down around 22.80 or so, give or take, and stop loss up around 23.10 to get above that old support level that was broken. It would have to go back above that to hit the stop loss. And boy, that works out nice in terms of risk reward. Okay, so from a technical perspective, the pullback that occurred on these smaller candles, okay, we see this bounce up, really gave a second shot to get your stop loss above the broken support without risking so much and have a much larger potential profit to the support level down below. So this is an opportunistic pullback if you want to follow that sell signal. Okay, now I just need to adjust my trade size now that I've got the technical analysis done in terms of where the take profit would be and stop loss. So stop loss up above here, above this resistance. Take profit down at the support level that we saw in the larger candles. So if I adjust this then maybe to one lot, it's 100 ounces of gold. I'm risking under 1,000 to make over 2,000. And maybe I go just a little smaller to get closer to my 1% example. 0.75, I'm risking about 1% of my balance, a little less to try and make over 2%. Okay, and so that's a market move. Now, another option with gold, silver, and FX pairings, I could have done that with AvaProtect. Okay, but if I just want to get through the announcements tomorrow and Friday, I could protect for a couple days. You can protect by the hour. It can protect as long as 2 days, and take. Let's see if I take half a lot, what the cost of the protection would be. I can even go 0.6, 0.55. And okay, so at 0.55 lots, it's less than 1% cost compared to my balance. And I don't have to worry about it going up and hitting my stop loss and then dropping. I can be more patient all the way through the announcements tomorrow and Friday to see if this goes my way. And so that's the advantage of using AvaProtect. You can be more patient, and you don't have to necessarily set a stop loss until the protection is near expiry. And it gives you the exact time that your protection expires. Any losses during the protected time period are added back. Okay, so this is another way you can diversify your risk management and be a bit more patient. So maybe with this one, I won't put a stop loss. My take profit, I'll put down lower. Let's go to a large, because I can wait a couple days and not risk anything further. So if I go to 1 day candles, I might look and say, you know, this might drop to something further if it really starts downtrending. Maybe I look at a support level down lower. Like this was an old resistance that became support back here on the 1 day candles down at 22.25. So since I can wait all the way through the announcements on Friday, perhaps the market gets spooked and gold drops further down, I could make over 4,000 on this move. The protection's costing me a small fraction of that. Okay, so this is the advantage of using something like AvaProtect. Now I have 2 different trades on the same instrument, but with different risk management setup. So I'm diversifying my risk management, even on the same instrument. And both of these, you know, I'm trying to use a combination of fundamentals and technical analysis to determine not only direction, but also where would I want to maybe take profit, considering the past price movements, the support and resistance levels, etc. And you can also take into account the RSI, the MACD that was on the market buzz if you go and look at the trend analysis for different instruments as well. And we can throw those indicators on our chart if you wanted to. And maybe you get a heads up from the trend analysis showing which indicators they used, and then you can throw them on the chart and analyze them yourself as well. Okay, so I think this is a good place to stop. Manuela, thank you for the compliment. I'm glad the explanation worked for you. If there are any last questions, comments, you can do that now before we wrap things up. I'll just pause for a moment. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining, and good luck with your trading the rest of today and the rest of the week. I'm back at it tomorrow, 11 a.m. UK time, with more of a fundamental news look as we get closer to those US announcements tomorrow and Friday. We'll go over how to maybe trade those announcements and some other ideas. And if you can attend, great. If not, all the sessions are recorded, including today's session, and you can find those on our YouTube channel as well. Okay. All right, everybody. Good luck with the trading. Bye for now.